that for a variety of reasons. I don't want to get into the legal nitty gritty, but much of what I've seen here is breathtaking in terms of what has happened, how they've been treated, the lack of protection, the kind of locking people up so they can't talk about what they see or what has happened. And then just kind of this creation of car wrecks, if you will, so that people will watch, so that you get eyeballs. And that would be, I guess, some people, I've heard the response, well, they signed up for it. This is their ticket to fame. I don't think anybody signs up for, being abused mentally and having, and kind of not being safe and having that kind of phenomena be then broadcast and then not being able to kind of confront or remedy or have a safety net, so to speak. I mean, it really is kind of shocking.
And really, like, now that this is a reality reckoning, like your phone in the office rings like at least several.
Yeah. I'm telling you, not just the phone. I get inundated by either from the website or people emailing. I'm telling you, I've got a couple of people who are dedicated to just fielding all of the inquiries. I mean, the numbers of people involved, both in front of the screen, behind the screen, is astronomical.
How many, just approximately, like, you don't keep up with it but how many do you think
I would have to go back and itemize, but we're trying to keep up with it, but we're inundated. It's all
like thousands a day, something like that.
I would just say conservatively because I have them report to me weekly, at least hundreds every week, which is
wow.
Because the stories and the way that people describe what was done to them, the basically withholding food, plying with alcohol, taking advantage of somebody who's having a mental health break, leaning into it, restrictive NDAs, not the ability not to complain. If you complain, the threat of financial ruin. I mean, it really, the story of collecting the reality horror stories could be a reality story in and of itself.
Could be a reality show in and of itself.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, listen, and I'm not trying to sell or get downloads for the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast, but if you went on my back feed and you looked at all these interviews I've done, I've heard these stories. I mean, false imprisonment. As soon as I saw that, I said, oh, I could think of 3 people off the top of my head. Revenge porn, I could think of 2. I mean, so all of this is like, okay, well, yeah, I've heard these stories from all these interviews I've done over the years.
I just don't understand how it's gone on so long without any kind of reckoning.
Is it, well, where is, so like I understood what you guys were saying about the NDAs. I mean, there's also this California law, which I didn't know until I saw that. But, that's the thing. Like,
we pointed it out in the letter that, and I think to some degree, in fact, I would submit, based on my anecdotal experience, almost uniformly, until people saw the second letter that Bryan and I sent, people didn't realize, wait a second here, you mean I don't have to be ruined financially if I voice my concern? I mean, I don't know whether they hesitated to come on your podcast or not, but I would submit to you, if they came on your podcast and they had an NDA, that they must be somebody who was in a position that they said, screw it, I'm gonna violate anyway, because these NDAs are about as illegal and as restrictive as I've ever seen.
Really? Like, these NBC ones are some of the worst you've ever seen?
Well, if you take a look at the language that was used and you trace it back to where it came from, you then take a look at the labor code, the government code, and much of the litigation that has gone on, in fact, recent unanimous California Supreme Court cases, I don't even understand what somebody was thinking here. I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, I wake up every day and kind of slap my head. This makes no sense to me. Seemingly smart people just leaning into violations of law.
Well, and yes. What do you think of Bravo's recent response NBC's where they say, well, we're not holding anyone to this. We would never want someone not to speak if they feel that they've witnessed these injustices. You're smiling.
I won't get into. I've just recently had discussions. I'm not going to reveal that. I will just tell you those responses, the best spin you can put on the public responses by them is really with a question mark.
What do you mean by that?
There isn't anybody who signed those things, I would submit to you, who believes that what they're saying now is what they said before they saw the letters that were out there. I find that hard to believe. You tell me, do you see anybody who came onto your podcast who was saying, yeah, they said it was okay for me to complain about these things. They welcomed that. Did anybody say, or has anybody said before we pointed out the actual statutes that prohibit this, was anybody saying, yeah, they welcomed our complaints. They were waiting for our complaints. They wanted to know what it was we thought were violations of law. No, it wasn't happening.
Well, not only that, but is it common other networks or I know you do a lot in the entertainment business, to say, so for instance, Bravo will say to their talent, the current talent, you can't do any interviews unless we approve it. So if someone wants to go on and, on, I don't know, on ABC, on Kathy and whatever show, Good Morning America, and talk about their experience on Housewives, whether it's positive or negative, they say, you can't do that. You can't do this podcast. I mean, is that clause, is that
first of all, the way that it's written and what we put in the letter, we deconstructed it. And Bryan did a wonderful job of putting that in the letter and the statutory analysis. What somebody used to tell me when I was young, you're going to believe me or you're going to believe my eyes. I would say, you're going to believe me or you're going to believe what's written in the NDA? Are you going to believe me or you're going to believe what's written in the statute, what the legislature said?
Are you getting calls? There is this narrative, feel free to confirm or dispel this narrative out there that, oh, this is a whole bunch of people that used to be on the Bravo network, quote unquote. These are disgruntled employees. They're no longer employed. They were fired. Is that the case, or are you hearing from current employees on current Bravo shows?
We've got the full range. So I've heard that argument that usually, in fact, much of what I've seen in response is obviously patently kind of PR spin. Because everybody who says, "Oh, it's only old disgruntled ones," really, I can't tell you how many people who are currently employed there. Oh, it's only, or this person would not have a career otherwise. Really, are you kidding me? I mean, Bethenny is a perfect example of that. She's a force of nature and has turned down kind of the exploitive items. So none of that.